don't get all of the stakeholders kind of, or your team with you, if you leave anyone behind, like you haven't won the race, because you got to go back and then you got to fix the thing and you got to make sure that they come along, or you've overlooked something. And so you feel like you're going too slow, but if you don't go at the correct pace, whatever that medium, middle of the road pace is, your speed is going to slow you down.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering Catalyst to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burnout, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
And today we're super excited to have time with Meghann Brock. Like most Catalysts, Meghann's career has been unique. From a career as a theatrical director to a director of healthcare innovation, her roles have been various, but one thing has been consistent. Throughout her career, she's embraced pioneering roles without established roadmaps, consistently pushing boundaries and driving change. Recently appointed as Director of Innovation for the Permanente Medical Group of Northern California, Meghann continues to lead change in revolutionizing healthcare delivery, combining her creative background with data-driven methodologies to shape the future of patient care. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. That sounds so nice when you guys say it.
It is really nice. And I feel like deep connections between all of us as I read out your journey. So I'm excited to hear about it. So let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about your catalytic journey, maybe a few career highlights that you're proud of that help us see your catalytic nature.
Sure. So I majored in theater. My undergrad was in theater. And I remember at the time that felt very risky. And I had a family member that advised me, like, just try it, do your first 2 years. And if you try out other subjects, see if you really want to go with it. And, undergrad's undergrad. It's your graduate degree that's going to count. And I'm really grateful for that advice from him, because it sort of gave me permission to realize, like, A, that's not the end of the road. Just because you get a degree in one thing doesn't mean you can't continue and learn in other areas. But when I got into theater, I wasn't acting. I had acted before and did musical theater and all that fun stuff, but I was really into directing. I'd had a wonderful mentor in high school who said that the theater needs more female directors, and I think you would be good at this. And so I had started directing my senior year of high school, and had basically been running like a little theater business. And so what I majored in was more directing, production management, stage management. My side jobs during college were all like working for theater companies, doing stage management, working with equity actors. Sometimes some really scary directors that would come in from Southern California and be very intimidating for the 18-year-old, 19-year-old Meghann to deal with. And so I got this degree, and it was more of a degree in running a business. It was like, how do you put together a production on a limited budget, limited time? How do you get the right people in the right roles? How do you kind of galvanize that group into creating something new? And you had a good structure, like there's always the structure of the play. And that's kind of the most important part, is like, what play are you actually doing, and do you feel a connection to it, and do you feel like you have something to bring to it? But every group that performs the same, plays that get performed multiple times in multiple casts, and each one is a little bit different. Like, it's not the same thing twice. And I think that was what was really appealing to me. So I moved to Seattle and did theater in the Seattle area for a while, and got to this crossroads of, I had my day job in sales, and they really liked my creativity, and they expressed it by saying, wow, what a great idea. And then they gave me money and healthcare and were really appreciative. And in the professional theater world, it was a little more cutthroat. Lots of, ideas, sort of your currency. So there was lots of like holding on to that, and maybe like a little bit of stealing ideas and taking credit for things that rubbed me the wrong way. And I started realizing, well, all of my creativity and these skills can actually work in companies and business and corporate. And I hadn't looked at that at all. Like, if you had told me take a business class, I would have been like, ugh, no, why? Gross, boring. I'm not going to be that person. But I ended up having a real affinity for it. And part of it was like working with these teams and getting things going and thinking about how to do things differently. So that took me into my quarter life crisis, because I found myself in sales for commercial lighting, because they liked my theater background. And that hadn't been an intentional move. And it was sort of like, am I helping the world? Like my goal was to do something where I was contributing and really giving back. And so I started this like quarter life crisis spiral of, okay, if not theater, what am I going to do? And like, what industry do I want to work in? And my father had worked in healthcare, and he was like, maybe consider it. I was like, okay. Started working in healthcare, working for his company, and realized that, my basic bookkeeping job was actually helping someone figure out what kind of, cancer they had and stage it properly and make sure that their surgery was successful. And it was like, that feels really meaningful, even if my little task. Which has now led to over 20 years of working in healthcare. And the area that I've really managed to apply like the catalytic, just big changes and big ideas and getting people to do things differently is performance improvement. So much more in like the organizational development side. Very quickly, I had great, bosses, but really they were all kind of mentors in figuring out, oh, Meghann can do this. Meghann's good at doing this. So they kept giving me projects and project management things with like multidisciplinary groups and pulling them together and, being able to have that framework, having the performance improvement methodology where we're like really defining the problem and we're doing tests of change and we're experimenting, but we're tracking it so that we can improve it. So I had the structure, but you could also have all the creativity with it. So I've launched multiple performance improvement programs, and that mentoring and coaching of others has really been a huge highlight of my career, really getting to see people get excited about being able to contribute to the work as well.
Hey, what fantastic advice that someone gave you at the beginning, and that you had the daring to sort of lean into that. Like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm willing to go on that journey. And then I just love the thread of creativity of how you've been able to bring that into all of the different places. And I have to say, I haven't ever heard the quarter life crisis. I'm totally stealing that.
It's a thing.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And so, like, just sort of building on that, how then now do you relate to the concept of being a catalyst?
I think the part that really resonates with me is how you have to get really comfortable with uncomfortable situations. And certainly the more you progress in your career, when you're in this space, it's probably not true for everyone, but the higher up you go, the more ambiguous the situations are. And if you're not comfortable with being uncomfortable and living mainly in that murky gray area, it's really going to be a struggle. And recognizing how other people react in that too, and how you kind of can adjust your behavior to help everyone get through it.
I love that clarity so much, and I've never actually heard anyone. We love doing these conversations because we get these nuggets ourselves, which is the clarity of the higher up you go, the more ambiguous the problems get, and that feels really true to me. I'm wondering how that then has supported you as a Catalyst executive.
Oh, someone's bringing me a birthday present. Sorry. It's okay. Just put it down. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, it's my birthday, so presents are arriving from the heavens.
Happy birthday!
It's my husband's birthday.
Oh my goodness, it's my mom's birthday.
Oh my gosh, look at this. There is a connection. We have a connection.
That's crazy.
So I'm so sorry. Ask me your question again.
Yeah, no worries,
Right?
no worries. It was
I
such
don't even remember the question. I'm excited about birthdays.
No.
It was such a great insight that you had about like how the higher up you go in an organization, the more you're going to be forced to or asked to or maybe lean into dealing with more ambiguity. And so I'm just wondering, like, as a Catalyst executive, how that has been supporting you.
So I think the key is having that making the clarity for yourself. So almost every job that I've had, someone didn't have it before me. It's either a brand new position that didn't exist before, or most of the times it's a brand new position that didn't exist before. So even the person who's hiring me does not know exactly what the job is going to be. They just know that they need help with this or that, and they think that I'm probably going to be able to figure out how to do that. And that's led to, frustration, right? Roles and responsibilities gets you every time. It's so annoying. And when it comes back, I'm like, oh, it's that again. Roles and responsibilities. We didn't clarify this. We didn't understand who was doing what. So I think getting comfortable with, okay, you aren't giving me a framework. I'm making the framework, but I'm going to document it or illustrate it or communicate it in a way that makes sense to you and that you can agree and adjust and tweak, and we can come to that like shared understanding. So kind of trying to make, yeah, I worked with a doctor who called it like hugging a cloud. And it's true. There's a lot of that where you feel like you're just hugging a cloud, and how can you make that cloud maybe a marshmallow? And then the next day, maybe make it like a pillow. And then one day it'll actually be like a nice rock that you can build a foundation on, but just having faith that you'll get there.
I'd love to build, because I'm already hearing you talk about some of the challenges that we experience as catalysts. And so I'd love to open it up to just, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced as a catalyst executive?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of them. I think one of the biggest ones is the pace is really a challenge. You know, it feels good to get things done fast, right? I think all of us have had that feeling of just, you know, wow, I got so much done on my list today. Doesn't that feel good? You get like a little dopamine hit.
Totally.
And, you know, it is, it's just like, ooh, just check, 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 check. And
Yep.
you're flying around. And I do think catalysts tend to move fast. And not everyone is moving as fast as you, or not on at the same time, right? Like we all have rhythms of when we're at a faster pace than others. So I think setting the pace is one of the things that's really important, and remembering that if you don't get all of the stakeholders kind of, or your team with you, if you leave anyone behind, like you haven't won the race, because you got to go back and then you got to fix the thing and you got to make sure that they come along, or you know, you've overlooked something. And so you feel like you're going too slow, but if you don't go at the correct pace, whatever that middle of the road pace is, your speed is going to slow you down. And we have tons of time to go back and fix things, you know? And so it's like hard to remember, like, well, we don't have time to go that slow. We don't have time to take all these hours to figure out all of the details of this and that. Let's just really quickly jump to a solution. And it's like, well, you don't have time to sit down and think about it for a couple hours in the beginning, but you have endless hours to go back and refix the thing because you didn't, you know, take that time to be thoughtful and strategic and intentional. And it's hard. I get carried away with it too. Like when I'm around people that are exciting and we're popcorning ideas, like I can get right into it with the best of them. So pulling myself back out of that is definitely the challenge that, you know, I'm working on. I think I've gotten better at it, but we all have.
You just birthed a visual in me that I'd not had before, that I love the idea. Like I'm literally seeing a runner hitting the line. What is it called?
The finish line.
The finish line. Yeah.
The finish line. Yeah. Like the thing. And it's like, if you're there alone, you lost as a catalyst.
Yeah.
If you don't have all the people with you crossing that finish line, then it didn't count. That is so powerful. I love that. Thank you for that image. I have a kind of a random question tying to something you said earlier. You said, you know, performance improvement has been a lot of what you have done, you've been proud of in your career. I'm curious if thinking about catalysts, now that this, you know, kind of term exists, was ever part of it intuitively. And it might not have been. It's truly just a curiosity.
So over the years, we've definitely done different exercises, like with the strength finders. I think it pops up in strength finders where you kind of look at like who are the people, and I can't remember all the different names for them, but there's like sort of the change agent, you know. And I definitely had people call me like, you know, like you're a free radical. You're just like bouncing around and like making things happen. I don't know if it's a compliment or not, but I always take it as a compliment. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no.
So I think it's there, definitely personality typing and making sure that that people understood like those drivers and how important they are. And in a lot of our sort of like working style exercises, you know, the drivers kind of get a bad rap because they tend to just drive right over everybody else because they want to move fast. They want to get everything done.
Totally.
But, you know, we need them too.
100%. And that's part of, you know, what Shannon and I do when we work with organizations, helping identify catalysts and upskill them and help them be positively disruptive, and learn the lessons that you're bringing forward. And so I was just curious if just in, you know, in your work that crosses over, if there'd ever been an element of, did it help to identify these folks at all? Or that wasn't,
I think so. I mean, a lot of times it's the team dynamics part of it. Like if it, especially when I was working, I had 52 teams that were in inpatient and outpatient settings.
Yeah.
It was a program that was designed to help our frontline healthcare employees collaborate with the managers on workflow improvements. And so that it wasn't just like management saying, you'll do this and it will make your life better, like letting the people that know the work best contribute to, fixing the workflow problems. And a lot of times, these people have worked together for a long time and it's like a family. And so there's like layer after layer of history and things that have happened and feelings about that. And I think, often coming together and kind of doing some level setting and doing a little personality typing exercise, no matter what it was, whether it was DISC, whether it was working styles, whether it was something else, helping people to understand that not everyone comes and approaches problems the same way. And being able to give each other a little bit of grace in that was always like one of the foundational things that really helped the teams to function.
That's beautiful.
You had mentioned earlier, like, I love the concept of the free radical and sort of the positive free radical. And you're like, I was often, it sounded like almost tapped for jobs that didn't exist before. And I'm wondering if you have a sense of how people knew that it was you, or like if you were able to start to articulate, like, this is a specific value, that ability to like hug the clouds or deal with the increasing ambiguity is like something that is not just comfortable for me, that I love. Like, how are those connections made?
I think at first, actually, I'll go back to the theater part, right? So even though my focus wasn't acting, I had plenty of practice acting and then speaking, being the director and having everyone, running meetings and things like that. So when I first started, my my immediate supervisor was terrified of public speaking. She was terrified of it. And we had something that we were rolling out to the senior leadership, some software that we needed to teach them how to use. And so she was like, will you present it with me? And then I'll stand next to you, because really position wise, it didn't make sense for me to be the one leading the meeting. So she just stood next to me. And that's how people in leadership saw me. That's how they started noticing me. So I think being able to have that public speaking comfort and not being afraid to get up in front of a group, which of course now behind that, I'm not just getting up there and just saying random stuff. Like that means I'm preparing. That means that I'm, making sure that I have, a plan for what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say, how I'm going to run the meeting. And that really did continue. That was the visual part that I think leaders were drawn to. They would come to a meeting that I was running and sometimes it was huge, like 100 people meetings, and a new executive came in and saw and was like, why are her meetings like well attended and everyone's really happy to be here, and my meetings are kind of not great, and I'm running all the managers here, like I need her help.
Just to like double emphasize that, because we talk about the power of storytelling so much, which is what helps then sort of convey everything that is catalyst is going to make you successful behind that. So I hope, just shout out for our listeners, the power of really great storytelling.
Absolutely. And finding good stories. I mean, that's another place where, because of the theater background, we had patient stories were used a lot to help people with certain initiatives, or like just remind and ground everyone in what we're doing. And so I did do a lot of work with our patients, hearing their stories about how we saved their lives and what impact we had made. And so being able to interface with all kinds of different people and get them to be able to share with me, some really intimate stuff, and then being able to use that to affect the workforce so that, everyone can tap into, oh, that's why we're here. That's right. That's why we're here. Like, you may be having a bad day, but we've got to take care of these patients.
I love that frame of not just storytelling, but finding the story.
Right.
That in this organizational environment with this set of patients, what is the right story that emerges? That's really powerful. Healthcare, you've lived there for so long, and I'm curious, there's a lot of good reasons that healthcare moves slowly, and that
Absolutely
moves slower.
Yeah.
But for catalysts, that can be tough. And so to meet a catalyst who's been an executive who's been there for 20 years, I would love to hear, in that challenge area, what have you learned about being able to deal with, move through organizational resistance?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any big company, I think it's a big company thing too. It's just when you have so many different people and there's different departments, and I'm always, I think the biggest missteps in my past have been missing a stakeholder or missing a stakeholder group because it's so complicated. And so sometimes that's because of speed. Sometimes it's just because of I had no idea that they were involved in that step. I didn't know that we should talk to them. I didn't realize that was going to impact them. I think it continues to be something that I work on, and that that my team works on, is that communication and who to talk to when and how much and how little, or, you don't want to overwhelm if it's not like mature enough, especially when you're in innovations. It's like, when's the right time to go, okay, it's time to share this POC more broadly. What's the right amount of success before we start bringing people in? Because we don't want people getting worked up thinking that we're turning the world upside down when we haven't even done our POC and figured out if it works. Like, there's no reason to stress people out unnecessarily. So a lot of it's timing and communication, and not forgetting, not moving too fast. And okay, who do I need to talk to about this? Who am I missing? I probably should have like a big stakeholder chart on my wall. I'm like looking around right now. Where could I put it? Like,
I was just thinking, Meghann, because I think like you're going to be taking the class, and I was just like, everything that you're talking about, and then just having the tools and support. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to have you in the class. It's going to be so fun. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is like, when you're in a smaller group, it's easier to kind of know your stakeholders. The bigger you get, the higher in the organization, it's like, oh my gosh, it can be a little overwhelming. So again, like, going from that hugging the cloud to actually having something tangible. If I feel like I'm missing stakeholders, the thing that I'll do is Post-it notes and whiteboarding and going, okay, now I have them all up here. Who am I missing? And then, like, as the day progresses, I might think of something, throw another Post-it note up there and be like, oh yeah, I did forget someone. I did overlook something.
I love that iterative sense, right? The acknowledgement first of, it is complex. Like, we're not going to catch it all. And then it's the timing. Like, is it now? Is it later? We'll test it. We'll come back. Oh, who are the right people? Is this the right pace? And there's a lot of grace that I hear in the learnings through your experiences of knowing, like, we know we're going to get it wrong to some extent. And so it's about, having that map, having that board that keeps us in it, and remembering that there's complexity and more to do. I love it.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate that the team that I work with, and this has been pretty consistent throughout my career, is that it's, making it okay to fail, and not having fail be like fail. It's not fail. I think I saw it in a class, like first attempt in learning. It's like the acronym fail. And that really resonates, because it's like, okay, well, let's make sure that we fail fast, and that we fail in this like safe space where we learn from it. Right. And so every time that there's kind of a institutional slowdown, which is usually because of some sort of failure on some part of communication and coordination and alignment, it's like, okay, well, this is really good that we're catching this now, because this is a great learning for us. And now, da, 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 da. And so framing it like that, so that people aren't afraid to say, I think we might have a problem, or I think I might have messed up, that I want people to tell me. I want everyone to feel safe saying, like, uh-oh, there might be a problem here, and not just like keep it quiet because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble.
As I listen to you, like the depth and structure of your insights just feels like a magic wand for a catalyst. Like, everything you're talking about is like, if we could all just do that.
Yeah.
And
easier said than done.
And so my question, I have a follow-up question, which is like, how do you manage your energy? Because it sounds like you are doing a lot of self-management, but it also sounds you're like doing a lot of organizational awareness and container creating, so people can come say that. I was like, how do you sustain your energy and all of that?
When I was working with the 52 teams, it came up a lot. I'm glad you asked that question, because I was coming home at night just drained, like exhausted, like I was covered in psychic energy.
Yes.
We were going from group to group really fast because there were so many of them and they needed help. And it was like, I felt like I needed to take a shower. Like, I was like, I have to like wipe all of these emotions off of me. And
we're only laughing because we totally get it.
Yes. You're just like, I had to like take all this venting. And what's fortunate is that working in healthcare, I asked a physician mentor, I said, it's wearing me out. How do I make this a little bit better for myself? Because this isn't sustainable. Like I can't be emotionally drained every single day. And doctors know how to do this, right? They learn how to take care of patients and not take on the suffering, and still have that empathy and still function well. And so his advice to me was, make sure that you have a little bit of time between each meeting, like you're scheduling yourself way too close. But even if you don't have time, like let's say because I'd be going from like a really high level executive meeting, and then I'd be going to meet with our environmental services group in, the basement of the hospital. And I remember one time I didn't do a good job of switching gears, and the chief steward was like, you need to stop talking. You're using too many big words and I don't understand anything you're saying. And I was like, thank you for the feedback. I have to slow down. I have to adjust my audience. So what I started doing was, based on his advice, is like taking time at the end of each meeting and like taking a few deep breaths and kind of mentally closing that, like, and that's done. And then take a few breaths and then like, okay, and now who am I going to see next? And what do I need to do to get myself ready for that? And even just remembering to take a few breaths and go, oh, I'm supposed to do the thing that'll like help me, even if I don't sound all it's like, oh yeah, I gotta do the thing where I like stop and then I move to, whew, but like take a few breaths. Get
And just
yourself
going
done.
back to Tracy's piece about you even have grace for yourself, the self-compassion in your process is like, I might not even do the reboot right.
I
Right?
don't, yeah, I
Like,
don't. Yeah. But I
totally.
remember I'm supposed to do a reboot, and that alone helps me a little bit. It's better than,
100%.
yeah.
Yes, I have massive goosebumps right now. All right. Um, do you have any, I mean, I don't know, I feel like you're a profound fount of wisdom. Do you have any other pieces of wisdom for other Catalyst executives?
I think the thing that really helped me, and I've mentioned a lot of them today throughout our conversation, is just finding good mentors and
Mm.
coaches, and not expecting that you should just be able to do it. Like I think, imposter syndrome is a thing, especially with women, especially as you're in higher and higher positions. And think having like the imposter thing, I think comes from like, oh, and I should be able to do it without any help at all. Right? Like I should just be able to know everything and be perfect all the time. And it's really unrealistic. Professional athletes have coaches, right? The people playing in the, US Open and Wimbledon have coaches all the time. They have coaches. They are world-class athletes, but they would never say, oh, I don't need a coach anymore because I'm fine and I can just figure out what I'm doing wrong on my own. So having that objective person to be able to be honest with you in a way that you can take, in a way that's actionable and able to like receive, like you don't need someone just like beating you up all the time, but having some sort of mentor, coach, um, even just a work buddy, it doesn't need to be some high level thing. It can be as simple as like just that person that you can trust to give you feedback on how that meeting went. And even to talk about, well, what could we do differently? I mean, a habit that I've developed over the last like 5 years, um, at the end of every training session that we would do, and we started doing at the end of meetings as well. It's like, okay, what went well today? What are we going to do differently tomorrow? And just doing that at the end of everything. And what's nice is it's not what didn't go well. It's what are we going to do differently? What are we going to try?
It's
And
great.
so it's positive. And so it lets the whole group kind of go, well, maybe we should try this instead of going, oh, we screwed up at that.
Mm-hmm. It's such you're reminding me of a pivotal moment in my career when I was like stepping into this really big role and the imposter syndrome was so loud. And it was like I looked for the mentors outside, but also the recognition that I didn't have to do it alone on the inside.
Mhm.
And that you can build, even if it's matrix teams, like you were talking about, like your work buddy or whatever, just like you don't have to do it alone, but the cultivation of having the support mechanisms is everything, especially for us
And
as
they don't,
catalysts.
and they don't teach you how to do it. Like
That's right.
they don't, I think it's an investment, right? And I don't know that companies realize, oh, this is an investment we should be making. I mean, there's mentorship programs and there's kind of buddy onboarding programs, but, and maybe it's just a certain group of people. I was really fortunate that I found a mentor who was officially a mentor for a certain project. And then she saw how much I was getting out of it. And she started teaching me more stuff. And she had this great background. She'd worked in GE, she worked at PG&E. She had this big company perspective. And, you know, she called me grasshopper, and she would teach me like how to navigate politics and how to like be the best that I could be and control what I can control. And she definitely had a huge influence, and I've continued using her as a thought partner to this day. I mean, I still talk to her regularly. I just adore her, and I've known her since I think 2011 is when we started working together. And it was invaluable. But no, that just happened. You know, wouldn't it be nice if there was a mechanism to help people, you know, at least learn how to ask for it, or learn how to spot someone who might be willing to be a mentor, and then have the words to ask them, you know, would you be willing to continue mentoring me? Would you be willing to coach me on X, Y, and Z? And kind of normalize that. Because I feel like at this point, if someone has a coach that a company has invested in, it may be an HR issue, or it may be, you know, it's like you
Right.
just don't
The
know.
stigma. That's right.
There's a
Totally.
stigma
Yeah.
with it. And
And
I
the
think
other,
that's right.
the other thing that someone helped me see really on when I got connected, like I was super junior and I got connected with a COO, and I was so afraid of wasting his time.
Mhm.
And he had disabused me of that so fast. He's like, I get a lot out of this too. So I think it's also the reminder to the people who might be hesitating to ask somewhat because of the stigma, is like, it's not always just one way, you know?
Absolutely. Oh no, it's absolutely not. I mean, I get a lot out of mentoring people. I love talking to people and having those sort of like coaching development conversations, and it makes me feel good when I see them like growing. You know, it's, again, it goes back to theater. Like, the thing I loved about directing is we would work so hard, and then on opening night I couldn't do a damn thing. I had no control over any of it. It was like, okay, I'm just going to stand here in the back of this dark theater, and I'm going to hope that it all happens the way it's supposed to happen. And I can't control it. I can't get up there and act it for you. I can't do the lights and the sets and the costumes for you. Like, I'm just standing here watching now. But I love that. And I love like watching people grow and develop, and you know, whether or not I have a hand in it, but certainly if I can help people out, I do. I get something out of it. It's like the gratitude thing. Like, if you tell someone that you're thankful for them, it actually makes you feel good too. So it same thing with mentoring. Giving to others does give to yourself.
Once again, you're helping me see that visual of there should be a lot of people with us at that finish line.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is never alone. And so I'm so glad you'll be with us in the fall in the class. One of the tools, this is what Shannon was alluding to, we literally have people build a network map.
Mhm.
It's for the current kind of areas that they're visioning toward, but it's not just a like it's an ask. Please shout out to the class. Don't forget to find your mentors.
Mhm.
Don't forget to find your coaches, because it's not typically something we're talking about, because we're talking about it in the context of a problem, but that wisdom it's gold. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
As
I'm glad it's helpful.
Yeah.
You
As
take
we
it for
wrap up
granted.
today.
You're in your little bubble. You're like, oh, is this helpful? Okay, good.
Oh, it's helpful. Oh, it's helpful. Thank you for letting your bubble join our bubble. And as we wrap up today, Meghann, this is always our favorite question. We'd love to hear who your favorite catalyst is, past or present.
So this is one of those things that, you know, I was looking at possible answers for this question, and my partner started laughing at me, and he's like, why don't you just tell them the truth? And I was like, what's the truth? Because it's kind of like those questions like, you know, who would you have dinner with, dead or like Gandhi, Madonna? I don't know. Yeah.
Gandhi and Madonna.
Yeah, I was trying to come up with like, I don't know, the most amazing catalyst ever. It's like, just tell them the truth. I said, what's the truth? And he's like, it's your dad. And I was like, you're right. It absolutely is my dad. So my father is, I'm going to get emotional. He has helped me so much in like every step of this journey. And, you know, he's a businessman. He worked in healthcare, but he worked in a lot of other industries as well. And he absolutely was a catalyst. And hearing like just his career path, gosh, maybe you guys should interview him on a podcast, because it's like he started in this, you know, this one space, and then through saying yes to things, through being open to things, through having people going, hey, I think you could do this. I mean, he was working in a farm implement. He was running a farm implement division in Central California. And randomly, this bank president that he was working with for that said, I've got this hospital that we've had to like foreclose, like we are taking over this hospital because they haven't been paying their bills. Can you come in and like fix it up and like make them a functional business again? And that's how he ended up in healthcare. He was like, yeah, okay. And then he ends up going on this totally different path, and he had no healthcare background at all. He was going from a farm implement division. So yeah, he's had a really incredible life, and he has a very sort of even-keeled approach to things. And he's 91 years old, and I still consider him, actually, he is one of my coaches. Like, I'll say, I need to book an appointment. I need to talk some stuff over with you. And he still gives me like the best advice.
Sounds like we should definitely have him on the podcast.
I know, I think he's the one.
Yeah. Like,
For sure.
yes.
For sure. Shannon just shared a quote recently from a friend of hers. Instead of saying it, I'll invite you, Shan, about the transition with your kids.
Oh yeah. So, you're successful. This was more geared for when your kids are like, junior high to high school and in that weird transition. Like, how do you navigate them becoming adults? And like, then you're successful when they fire you as their managers, but rehire you as their coach.
Yeah.
And I love that at 91, you're still hiring your dad as your coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a testament to his parenting, to the relationship that you both have, the trust that you have in one another.
He's great. Lovely. He's great. Yeah, no, I'm very fortunate there. And it was so funny that my husband's like, why don't you just tell them? Like, why are you keeping it a secret? Like,
and how seen you are. Go partner.
Well, Meghann, I hope this is the first of a zillion conversations that we'll get to have with you, because I can tell we just barely scratched the surface of the vast wisdom that you've accumulated.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you so much to our listening audience. If you'd like to learn more about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And if you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, please take 10 seconds to rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.